It all started the way every ridiculous encounter with Deborah did. I had just pulled into my driveway after a quick run to the store, groceries still loaded in the back seat, when I noticed her standing at the edge of my lawn. Arms crossed, weight shifted onto one hip, and that smug, self-satisfied expression plastered across her face like she had just won a gold medal in neighborhood policing. Welcome back to Modern Millennial Memoirs, folks. Before we dive in, smash that like button and subscribe to keep these neighborhood chronicles coming. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. I hadn't even stepped out of my car when her voice sliced through the air like nails on a chalkboard. That car, she snapped, pointing with an accusing finger at my vehicle, is in direct violation of the HOA's regulations. I exhaled a breath that was more of a sigh, already feeling the familiar prick of frustration at the base of my skull. What is it this time, Deborah? I asked, forcing a calm I didn't feel as I grabbed a grocery bag from the back seat. She marched closer, heels clicking against the sidewalk like a metronome of doom. We have very clear rules about what types of vehicles can be parked in the driveways overnight. That, she jabbed her finger toward my car again, is absolutely unacceptable. It's a commercial vehicle, and our bylaws explicitly prohibit those. I frowned, turning to glance at my car. A black sedan, completely nondescript. No logos, no decals, no obvious signs of it being anything but a standard vehicle. Deborah, I said slowly, that's not a commercial vehicle. But she was already rifling through her massive tote bag, something resembling Mary Poppins' carpet bag, pulling out her laminated copy of the HOA guidelines like it was the Holy Scripture. Vehicles used for business purposes, she declared, flipping to a tab section, are subject to immediate removal. And I've already reported this to the board. She paused to give me a smug little smile. If it's not moved within the hour, I'm calling a tow truck. I gave a short laugh. You can't tow someone's car just because you think it's a commercial vehicle. Her eyes gleamed like a cat watching a trapped bird. Oh, but I can, she purred. In fact, I already did. She gestured up the street. Tow truck's on its way. My blood pressure ticked up a notch. I'd dealt with Deborah's nonsense before, but this was a whole new level of insanity. You didn't even give me a chance to move it, I protested. She folded her arms tighter. The rules are the rules. If you bothered to read the guidelines, you'd know this isn't up for debate. Her smug expression widened into a grin. The board agrees. That car is getting towed. I shook my head. You really don't know when to quit, do you? You'll learn to respect the HOA, she shot back. Eventually, that's when I heard it. The low rumble of a diesel engine turning onto our street. I turned. There was the tow truck. My stomach sank, and Deborah clapped her hands together with satisfaction. Ah, perfect timing, she crooned. The driver hopped down from the cab, clipboard in hand. Which vehicle? He asked, looking bored. That one, Deborah said, pointing dramatically. Remove it immediately. The driver made his way over to me. You the owner? He asked. I shook my head. No, I said. It belongs to my wife. Deborah snorted. And where is she? Because unless she moves it now, it's gone. I smirked. She's at work. But I wouldn't touch that car if I were you. Deborah's laugh was condescending, sugar-coated venom. Oh, really? And why is that? I leaned in, dropping my voice just enough. Because my wife's an undercover cop. And that's an unmarked police vehicle. For the first time in all my years dealing with Deborah, she looked genuinely speechless. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I watched the color drain from her face in real time. The tow truck driver's eyes widened. Wait, you're telling me that's a police vehicle? Yep, I replied. An unmarked government-issued police vehicle. Deborah's laminated HOA book slipped in her grip as her hand started to tremble. That doesn't make any sense, she finally spluttered. There are no police officers in this neighborhood. I laughed. You don't get to decide where undercover officers live, Deborah. And for the record, my wife's been living here longer than you. Deborah let out a high-pitched, nervous laugh. This is all just a misunderstanding. I didn't know. The tow truck driver crossed his arms. So, let me get this straight. You call me out here to tow a legally parked police vehicle? I thought. Deborah was floundering, and I wasn't about to save her. Yeah, I said with a sigh. Looks like you just tried to illegally impound a police vehicle. Deborah's face went pale as chalk. That's when another car turned into the driveway. My wife was home. She stepped out, sunglasses still on, scanning the scene. Tow truck. Deborah. Me, try not to laugh. My wife has this natural authority about her, and seeing the tow truck only intensified it. What's going on? She asked, walking up beside me. Before I could answer, Deborah exploded in a flurry of panic. Officer, I swear, this is a mistake. I was just following HOA protocol. My wife frowned. She glanced at me. I grinned. Deborah here called a tow truck for your car. She thought it was a commercial vehicle. Deborah laughed weakly. I didn't know it was yours. I was just doing my job as HOA president. My wife raised an eyebrow. So your job is to illegally tow private property? Her voice was calm, but I could feel the temperature drop. Deborah stammered. It was just a misunderstanding. The tow truck driver shook his head. Lady, you just wasted my time. You owe me a call-out fee. Deborah's eyes bulged. What? I'm not paying for this. He shrugged. Not my problem. You requested a tow. Now you pay. Deborah looked like she was about to faint. I leaned against my wife's car, enjoying every second. So, Deborah, I said, how's that HOA authority working out for you now? Her lips quivered as she searched for an escape. But there wasn't one. I shouldn't have to pay for this, she shrieked. My wife crossed her arms, her badge now clearly visible on her hip. Deborah, let me explain something, she said in that voice she reserved for suspects. What you did wasn't just petty. It was illegal. You tried to have a police vehicle towed without cause. That's obstruction. Obstruction. Deborah gasped. I didn't. The tow truck driver sighed. Lady, I don't care. Bottom line, you owe me. Neighbors had started to gather, whispering and pointing. Mrs. Thompson smirked. Looks like Deborah's finally getting hers. About time, Mr. Lynn added. She fined me $200 for leaving my trash bins out for an hour. Deborah, realizing the tide had turned, shrieked, This is harassment. I was enforcing regulations. The crowd wasn't buying it. Like when you tried to evict the Martins for Christmas lights, someone called out. That was different, Deborah cried. I was protecting property values. My wife shook her head. Deborah, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. And just when things couldn't get worse for Deborah, they did. A patrol car rolled by and stopped. Officer Ramirez stepped out, raising an eyebrow. What's going on here? He asked. The tow truck driver pointed at Deborah. She called me to tow a police vehicle, then refused to pay. Deborah was in full meltdown mode. Officer, I was enforcing our standards. I didn't know it was police-issued. Ramirez pinched the bridge of his nose. You didn't check before calling a tow truck? The rules clearly state. He cut her off. Ma'am, is this your vehicle? He asked my wife. Yes, she answered. And I'd like to report attempted unlawful towing and harassment. No, please. Deborah pleaded. We can handle this internally. Ramirez pulled out his notepad. Sorry, Deborah. Interfering with police property is serious. The tow truck driver tapped his watch. Still waiting on that call-out fee. Deborah's face twisted. For a second, I thought she'd explode. Then she yanked out her credit card and thrust it at him. He swiped it with a smile. By the time Officer Ramirez finished his report, Deborah had lost every ounce of dignity. She stormed off toward her house, but turned back at the sidewalk. You'll regret this, she hissed. I smiled. Oh, Deborah, I already don't. The crowd laughed. Deborah stomped away. For the first time in years, it felt like I'd won. But Deborah wasn't done.